morning, guys, and welcome back. Hope you're doing well. I'd like to do a project with you this morning that is a landscape project. And I know that we have done landscape in class before, so it's not exactly a new idea for you. And we're going to be revisiting some of those ideas that we've already talked about, but we're also going to be looking at a new idea, and that is combining with what we've talked about this week, pattern, with creating a landscape. Okay. The first thing I'd like to do is to start to set up my paper with the shapes that are going to form my landscape. Let's remember that what we're trying to create in any landscape is a feeling that there is some depth in your picture, a feeling of what artists call space in your picture. And the way that we do that is going to be by creating a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And those words should sound familiar to you. Here's how I do that. Here's my paper. You can hold your paper in a what they call a landscape orientation, or you can hold it in a tall or portrait orientation. I like to do it this way for this project, but you can choose either way. So what I'm going to do is put in those land layers to create foreground, middle ground, and background, like I just said. You could put lines that are straight, but they're really a lot less interesting than lines that move on curves or diagonals. So I would encourage you to put your lines in on curves or diagonals, like so. Let your lines, let your spaces overlap. Okay. And that's how we'll create a sense of distance and a sense of space. Okay, so in my landscape now, I have a foreground, I have some middle ground layers, and I'm going to now put in some background layers, and those are going to be some mountain shapes, which I like to start at the highest point and work my way down and out and down. I can go back up there. Okay? And maybe I'll include even another layer of mountains that's behind this layer. Okay? And in the sky, we'll use some of that space also. I'm going to include some clouds. I think it's a good technique to have the bottom of the cloud to be the flat part, and then to put what we usually think is the bumpy part on top. Okay? Clouds that are farther away will be a little closer to your land, your horizon. Okay? They won't be quite so big. And clouds that are closer to you will actually appear higher in the sky. Okay? And they'll be larger yet, with the biggest shapes. Okay. So here is a good basic layout for a landscape. Okay, so now that we have our basic landscape, I'd also like to encourage you to put some things into your landscape, things that would live in a landscape, like bushes or trees, maybe flowers, or a little house or building, a barn, something like that. So I'm going to do some of that. I'm going to actually start the other way. In the back here, I'm going to include a little tree shape. Notice how I'm overlapping those layers that are behind. It's okay to do that. I'd encourage you to do that. And then you can erase out what you would not see. As your layers come closer to the front, your trees should appear to get even bigger. Do one here. Okay, and anything that you wouldn't see that would be hidden behind that tree, we can go ahead and erase those lines. Okay, so I'm going to take a few minutes to go ahead and add some other things into my landscape. Okay, so this is my landscape, or at least my pencil drawing for my landscape. And my lines are pretty much where I want them. And I think it's going to work pretty well as a landscape and art piece. So I'm ready now to come back with my marker and start to make my lines permanent. Okay, and you can do that too. Just trace over all of your good lines, all of the ones you'd like to keep, and erase out any of the lines that are not working for you or that you don't want to keep. If you get a little bit off your line, like let's say like I do right there, don't worry about it. We can always erase that pencil line afterwards. Okay, go through now and make permanent all the good lines in your artwork. So as a next step, what I'm going to begin to do is put some patterns into the shapes I created in my landscape. I'm going to begin in my landscape with a pathway that I created, and you can see that I maintained the same pattern in my pathway all the way back in my drawing until it meets the house. What you'll notice is that I have used a geometric checkerboard pattern for my walkway, but I will be using other types of patterns as we move forward. And now that I've done that, I'm going to do similar to the other parts of my artwork. I'm going to go into each of the layers and add patterns that are interesting and that really make my drawing come to life. You try the same, okay? As you're starting to fill in the shapes with various patterns, please remember the 6 types of patterns that we saw in the video we watched this morning, as well as in the slideshow. To review, they were the geometric pattern, the organic pattern, the symmetrical pattern, the spiral pattern, the radial pattern, and the wave pattern. Do you see those different types of patterns in my landscape?